Hello everybody, welcome to this channel if you're new, welcome back if you're not. My name is Catherine and it is almost the end of the year, which means that I get to do my very first reading wrap-up, which I'm so excited for because I grew up watching all these reading wrap-ups and now I finally get to do one of my own. On Goodreads, I think I made a goal of like 20 books for 2023 and I ended up reading 27. Now before I get into this, I do want to say that everything I say is just my opinion. When it comes to books, I'm very easily impressed. I think I've mentioned this multiple times before, so I just want to put that out there before I say any of my ratings or say any of my thoughts. And also I wanted to add that really no book is like bad. It's just usually not for me, but that is very different than just being bad. Okay, let's get into it. I have a little note thing over here that kind of tells me and guides me because I cannot remember everything that I read. But to start off 2023, I read Year of the Reaper by Micaiah Lucier. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this book follows Lord Cassia in his return from jail. He was ambushed by enemies long ago and he's finally out and he wants to go home, but it's a lot harder than it seems because not only is there like some type of plague that is sweeping the land, but there's also an assassin on the loose. So it follows his journey and I rated this book a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I think that the writing was very easy to follow, and not only was it easy to follow, I thought it was very like descriptive as well. Also, what I thought was kind of interesting was that the main character is a male, and I feel like we don't see as many like male main characters as often, and if we do, it's like usually a dual point of view. Sorry, I don't know why my nose is like stuffy. The next book that I read was Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This book follows Olivia Pryor and she's in this orphanage for girls, but then suddenly she gets a letter inviting her to Gallant, which is a manor that her extended family lives in. But when she arrives there, she quickly realizes that no one wants her there, and moreover, she realizes that Gallant holds a lot of secrets. Now, I'm a big fan of V.E. Schwab's work and the writing. I think it's very beautiful, and this book had a very like mysterious and spooky feeling to it, which I absolutely loved. But I will say that I personally didn't connect with the characters and there wasn't too big of a character development or character arc. But then again, I think this book did take place over the span of like a couple of days, so you can't really like change too much within those couple of days, so I guess I'll give that a little pass. And I don't think I was like too satisfied with the ending, but it was still a very good book and I rated it a, what did I rate it? 3.75 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read I actually have a physical copy of, and it is Light Lark by Alex Astor. I actually do have a reading vlog of me reading Light Lark, so if you guys want to check that out, that is by the way a very shameless promo, but if you want to check it out, it is on my channel somewhere. Now, if you don't know what Light Lark is about, it is about an island that appears every 100 years to hold a tournament called the Centennial. All of the rulers of these realms are invited to play so that they could have a chance at breaking their curse. This book follows Isla? I forgot how you pronounce her name, but she's a ruler of the wildling, and fun fact about her, she does not have any powers. And so my thoughts is that this book is young adult, by the way, and it reads like a young adult. As someone who's like 21, I read this when I was 20. I feel like I didn't connect to it as much as I would have connected if I read this when I was 15, if that makes any sense. And the magic system and like the world building did raise a lot of questions for me, but will I read the second book? Yes. I read and I rate based on the vibes, and so I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars because I just enjoyed the vibes. I'm a big fan of anything that involves like tournaments or trials, and this had exactly that. The next book that I read I do not have a final copy of because I actually borrowed my friend's, and that is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Also another shameless promo, I do have this video on my channel if you want a more in-depth video of me reading it. Now, this is the third book of the Inheritance Games trilogy. It follows Avery Graham after she inherits billions by someone she seemingly thinks is a stranger, and so she gets tossed into this world full of chaos and like all this money and power, and then on top of that she has to handle the 4 grandsons of Tobias Hawthorne. Sorry, give me a moment because I love the Hawthorne brothers so much, especially Grayson. I love that man so much. Like, look at me, I'm like tearing up. I rated The Final Gambit 4 out of 5 stars because, like I said, gosh, I cannot speak today. I had a fun time reading this book. I think that it wrapped up like the entire story pretty well. I don't think I like it as much as I like other books of the trilogy, but I still liked it nonetheless. The next book that I read is Chances by Lee Jacquot. I am so sorry I'm butchering this, but this is the next book I read, and this is a dark romance. So definitely check like all the trigger warnings before you read this. It follows Lucian and Sabrina, and Lucian is a prosecutor for like this mafia gang type thing, and Sabrina is the newly arranged to be wife of the gang leader. Obviously they're gonna be close together. Now, like I mentioned, this is a dark romance book. Definitely check all the warnings before you read this. It is age gap, dark romance, and I think it has some like mature subjects. Also, this gave like mafia romance in like Gotham City, which I'm a big fan of, like DC and like Gotham City, so I had a really fun time reading this. Also, I had a really fun time because I actually did this in like a book exchange annotation thing with one of my best friends, and so we have our annotations in this, so just reading it was absolutely hilarious. I'm reading it right now. Like, we have these little annotations in here. I just had a really fun time annotating this book with her, so I think that book will always be so memorable to me only because of the annotation. The next book that I read is The Thousandth Floor by Catherine McGee. Now, this is a futuristic young adult book that follows 5 characters. It starts off with a huge shock factor because when you read this, it starts off with someone dying, and then the rest of the book kind of follow the events that lead up to that death. I rated this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. What are my notes on this? Let me look down. There are mixed reviews about this book, and I can see why. First off, my biggest complaint about this is Avery and Alex. Not Alex, I meant Atlas. Ooh, I just hate step-sibling relationship. That's just so weird to me. I can't, like, you know, what's that, that movie My Fault? I can't watch it because oh, that's why I just like, I read this and I was like, ew, I don't like it. But I will say that I absolutely adored all the characters in this. Not only does this have LGBTQ rep and POC characters, but it also talks about class divisions and like privilege, and so I thought that this was very good. I don't think I explained it that well, but definitely go on Goodreads and check out what this book is about because I suck at giving little synopsises. The next book that I read was Caraval, and then I read Legendary a couple months after, and so I'm just gonna do both of these book reviews right now. Now, if you don't know what this book is about, where have you been? I don't know. It was such a fun book to read. It was very whimsical. It was very magical. I love Stephanie Garber's writing. I like the vibes of Caraval. Gosh, I cannot speak in this video. I'm so sorry. I like the vibes of Caraval more, but I like the adventure of Legendary a little more. Both of them. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, Book of Night by Holly Black. This is Holly Black's adult debut novel. It is a modern dark fantasy, and it follows Charlie Hall, who is a con artist, and she is tasked with the mission to find the Book of Night. This world was very creative. It has like shadows and shadow elements, shadow magic, and I am a huge fan of all of those. Oh my god, the book is slipping. I didn't even realize. It was kind of slow at the beginning, but definitely picked up towards the end. I think it took me like a hot minute to get through like the first half. It did end on a cliffhanger, and am I super eager to read the next one? Not like super eager, but I do want to read it eventually. I will also say that the magic system was not the best. I think it was a little confusing to me. I had trouble keeping up, and there was one point where I was just like, okay, if it tells me this rule, I'm just gonna roll with it. Like, I stopped trying to care about the magic system because it just kind of confused me. But overall, it was a good book. 3 out of 5. The next book that I read is Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody, and I want you to think Ketterdam Gang, a hunt for family and young teenagers. That is the best way I could describe it. The main character, N, she is on the hunt to find her mother in the city of Sin, and so she teams up with Levi, and they go on this very interesting search for clues, and it leads them through a lot of trouble and a very vicious execution game where basically no one wins. I took this book to the beach with me to go and read it, and it was a very fun read, but the characters, like, they didn't really stand out to me. I didn't really connect to many of them. Maybe it was also because I didn't like the main character too much. I feel like she made a lot of bad decisions, but she had a very good character development. I will say that the beginning does start off with a lot of world building and info dump, so you're just gonna have to power through that, but then after that, I feel like it's not as bad. I rated this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Would I read the second book? I am still not too sure. After that, I read Gothicana by Rue Nix. I read this on my Kindle, and this book has the dark academia gothic romance vibes that I wanted so badly, but this book left me very confused and kind of frustrated because there were so many unanswered questions. If you don't know what Gothicana is about, it follows Corvina Clem, and she gets a letter to this university, so she attends it but then realizes that there's a lot of like secrets and mysteries at this castle, and then her part-time professor goes and helps her on this little mystery. And yes, I said part-time professor. I don't even know how I feel about that. I think those are my main things. Like, okay, personally, this is just me. I am not a fan of step siblings relationships. No, part-time professor or like teacher student. Oh, gross. What else? Okay, I'm not too big of a fan of like age gap. Yeah, those are like some of the things it doesn't like settle with me. I don't know. I went into this book kind of blind. Like, I did not know what it was about at all. I kind of just picked it up and was like, okay, everybody's kind of talking about Gothic horror, let me read it. But I was like so confused. At first I was like, is it vampires? Is it like ghosts? Is it like a cult? Like, I am not even sure, and I still don't think I know the answer to that. The ending was satisfying for some characters, but it was not satisfying to me because I was left with so many unanswered questions, and there were mysteries that they never even mentioned again. So honestly, I don't think I was a big fan of this. I see why other people like this book, you know, the romance there, but I just don't think it was for me. At least rated this a 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I really wanted like a young adult mystery thriller, and this definitely fulfilled that. This book follows a group of friends as they go on this little RV adventure for spring break, but then the RV breaks down in the middle of nowhere, and to make matters worse, there's a sniper in the woods that's targeting them. I'm very conflicted about how I feel about this book because I love Holly Jackson, but I just could not really get through this. It was a very fast-paced book. Like, for them being in an RV for like 400 pages, this book went by so fast. But at the same time, I just could not get myself to like any of the characters or connect with any of the characters, especially the main character and the narrator throughout the entire book, Red. I could not stand Red. That sounds so mean, but I could not stand like her and her thoughts. Like, it just, I don't know, I just could not get myself to like this. But I usually am a big fan of Holly Jackson's books, so I'm not gonna let this like weigh my opinions of Holly Jackson. And so I rated this a 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and this is a modern day retelling of Persephone and Hades, the Greek mythology, and I just don't think I like this too much. I rated this a 2 out of 5 stars, and the thing is, I feel like many people might not agree with me. I think I saw some of like the Goodreads reviews and then also like reviews on TikTok, and they really rave about this book, but I just don't think it was for me. I don't know, I think this might be my lowest rated book of 2023. I think it's like nothing that Persephone did made any sense to me. Like, I swear she made bad decisions based on nothing. Like, she just made bad decisions. And then of course there was like the not evil but misunderstood villain, aka Hades. Let me give you an example of how this book went. Hades would be like, no, I didn't steal your chocolate, or something. That's an example, by the way. He'd be like, no, I didn't steal your chocolate. And then Persephone would be like, you stole my chocolate. I know you stole my chocolate, blah, 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 blah. Like, a couple pages later, she'd be like, oh my god, you're right, Hades. You did not steal my chocolate. Like, that's basically how that book went. And also, I feel like there was like a lack of proofreading. There was a lot of grammatical errors and things that did not align if you read like closely. Like, if you read closely, you would see like, oh, this does not make any sense. It was a very easy read though, and I feel like if you want that modern day retelling, then this book would be for you. But I just personally don't think that I would be picking up the second book, only because I feel like everything was wrapped neatly in the first book. It's actually getting quite dark now, so I don't know if I should like hurry or just continue this tomorrow. But anyways, the next book that I read is, oh, where'd it go? That is, did I just lose a book? Oh, it's right here. The next book that I read is Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and then a couple months later I read Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book 1 and 2 of the series, and I do enjoy this series a lot. If you don't know what this romance series is about, it follows Lily Calloway and Lauren Hale. Lily Calloway is a sex addict and Lauren Hale is an alcoholic, and for 3 years they have been in a fake relationship so that they could hide their addictions from their families and from the public eye. But then that starts to unravel, and they soon realize that maybe they don't want to be in a fake relationship anymore, and maybe they want to be in a real relationship. I think I gave this one like a 3.75, just rounded up to 4 stars out of 5, and then I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I personally enjoyed the first book more than I enjoyed the second book because I feel like the first book had more like fast-paced plot, whereas this book was more like character driven, focused a lot more on like character development. Also, there was a big lack of Lauren Hale in this, and all I wanted was Lauryn Hill. I feel like this is a very easy read if you're looking to pick up a series and really want to immerse yourself into this world. I will definitely say to check all the warnings though before you read any of this, because like I mentioned, they are addicts, so they talk about, you know, addiction related topics. And then the next book that I read, not this one, next book, sorry, I just sneezed, that's why my nose is red. The next book that I read is Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and this is a young adult fantasy. It is a retelling of The Queen of Hearts, and this is a 5 out of 5. Not a second goes by where I don't think about this book, where I don't think about Kat and Jest. I love Jess so much, and it's so refreshing to read his character, because I feel like nowadays when it comes to young adult fantasies, I always read about the same bad boy, serious male love interest, but Jess is like, he's the court joker. He is such a golden retriever. I love them so much, and I was so heartbroken by the end of this book, and like reading the ending is just, I think about it quite often. My Roman Empire is also a standalone, so if you're looking for a standalone, this is a perfect book. Highly recommend. Now this book, the next book I read is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's actually quite criminal that it took me so long to read this book, especially because it was so good. It was so good. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. You don't know what this book is about, you know, again, where have you been? I feel like a common mistake though when people read The Cruel Prince is that they go in expecting a lot of romance, but you gotta know that this mainly focuses on like government, politics, wartime stuff. It does not focus on the romance. Romance is just a subplot, but let me tell you, this subplot is so good. Carden and Jude, best enemies to lovers, true enemies to lovers, because nowadays people say enemies to lovers but then they fall in love within like the first 50 seconds. This is true enemies to lovers, so highly recommend. I have the next book. I need to read the next book because that was so good. The next book that I read, I do not have a physical copy of, but it is The Silent Vows by Jill Ramsauer. Now this is a new adult mafia romance book. It follows Noemi, which I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but yeah, it follows her, and she is forced into an arranged marriage to this other mafia leader in the name of an alliance. Now the thing about Noemi is that she is not talking. She is selectively mute for the time being because she knows what happened to her mom and like why her mom died. So she wants to keep her mouth shut so that she does not risk the lives of like those she cares about. But then Connor, aka her arranged husband, knows that something is up. Noemi and Connor's relationship was very interesting. Like one moment they would absolutely hate each other, but then the next moment they would love each other. Did not make sense to me. I don't know. I rated this a 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read The Empress of Time by Kylie Lee Baker on my Kindle. I have a whole reading vlog of that as well. And let me tell you, this is an underrated series. I love this book series so much. It is a duology. The Empress of Time is the second book of the Keeper of the Night series. It follows Ren, who is some type of Grim Reaper. And if you know me, you know that I'm a big fan of like all things soul collecting, Grim Reaper, Shadow. You know, like that's the vibe that I absolutely love, and this has exactly that. And it follows her journey of trying to hunt back her brother after he gets lost in this like underworld. I gave this a 5 out of 5 because I loved it so much. I love all the fantasy elements that this book has. I love all the Japanese folklore that is in this book. I cannot recommend this book enough. Like this book is so good. After that, I read Enemies with Benefits by Roxy Noir, and this is also a new adult book. It is the first book of a companion's novel. I have a whole reading vlog on this as well, so I won't say too much about it, but it follows Eli and Violet. They have been childhood rivals since childhood, and then they go to college, they go their own separate ways, but now they're back in the same small town working at the exact same company, fighting for the exact same bonus. And to add a little more to the bowl, they've decided to become little friends with benefits, except they're obviously not friends, they're enemies, so it's enemies with benefits. And this book was so good. Small town romance, right? Workplace romance, friends with benefits, enemies to lovers. He falls first and he falls harder. Like it had all these cute little tropes in it, and it was such a fun little quick romance read that was very swoon worthy. So this is something I would definitely recommend if you're looking for like a quick romance. I rated this like a 4.5 or 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Come For Me With Apples by Catherine M. Valente, and this is an Adam and Eve retelling. I also have this in a reading vlog somewhere. Like I said, it's an Adam and Eve retelling storytelling, but gives me the vibes of Don't Worry Darling. I think the writing fit the story quite well, but it was a little fluffy, and I don't remember too many notes I had about this book. I don't think it was bad, but I just don't think it was for me. I gave this a 2.75, 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read All of Our Demise by Amanda Foody and C.L. Herman. This is the second book of a young adult duology, and in this modern fantasy world, there is this tournament that happens every generation, and 7 families send one champion to this tournament so that they can go fight to the death, and the winner gets access to high magic. I rated this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I have a whole reading vlog on this, so I won't say too much, but I really enjoy any type of book that involves like trials and tournaments, so I was a big fan of this. I think it was a very nice wrap up to the entire story, but I was a little unsatisfied with the last like ending battle. It is multiple point of view, and I feel like the characters are super diverse in that like I could pull like one paragraph from someone's chapter and you could easily identify whose character is saying that. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then I read Come Closer by Sarah Gran, and this is a mystery thriller short story novella, and it follows Amanda, and she's having some weird things that are happening to her. At first she hears like weird noises in her apartment, creepy things are happening, she starts having nightmares, gets into fights with her husband, and just long story short, she's actually being possessed, and you're reading it from her point of view. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. The negative 1 star is solely because I was dumb. I'm a scaredy cat. I read it at night. I read it in like 2 hours at night, and then turned off the light, went to bed, and then scared myself because I think I was like lying down, okay? And then I turned off the lights because, you know, I'm going to bed. And then I was like, Catherine, there is something in the corner. And I was like, oh my god. I just psyched myself out, so I got myself scared. So I don't recommend reading this at night if you're a scaredy cat, because like I mentioned, you're reading this from her point of view and she's literally getting possessed by this demon. But it was something I actually recommend. Like I actually enjoyed this book a lot, but I would just recommend reading it during the daytime if you get scared like I get scared. The next book that I read is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and if you don't know what this is about, it's a young adult fantasy that follows Peyton Gray. In this world, you have the elites and you have the ordinaries. The elites are people with extraordinary power. The ordinaries are just ordinary. They do not have any powers. But the thing about being ordinary in this world is that it is punishable and you could be killed and exiled for being an ordinary. Peyton Gray is exactly that. She is ordinary. So what she does is poses as a sidekick, pretends that she has powers so that no one can go and like, you know, kill her. But when she accidentally saves the prince of the kingdom, she gets nominated and thrown into the Purging Trials, which is another set of tournament that lets elites showcase their powers. Like I mentioned, I am a big fan of any trials and tournaments, and I think I have a lot to say about this, and I keep going back and forth with like all my reviews and comments and thoughts. First and foremost, Miss Lauren Roberts, you are an inspiration to me, because if you guys didn't know, she published this book when she was like 18, 19 years old. Her and I think are about the same age, and that I feel like is just so incredible, because can you imagine like just chasing your dreams, just taking that leap of faith at like 18, 19 years old? And like clearly it has worked out very well for her. And because this is her first book ever and she wrote this when she was like 18, 19, I feel like I cannot be as harsh because it's her first book. But I do have a couple things to say about it. Number one, I love the banter. I love the banter between Peyton and Kai. Every single time something left their mouth, I was like giggling. I also really love like the characters, their inner monologues, and like all of the trials itself, because I thought that was very interesting. But I do have a couple of things that I wish I saw more of, or like I would change. The first thing I want to say is that this was marketed as an enemies to lovers, and I don't think that this is an enemies to lovers, and I feel like people might come for me for saying that, but I truly don't believe that this was an enemies to lovers. Like Kai and Peyton already had that like attraction at the very beginning. If you want a true enemies to lovers, let me tell you, the true enemies to lovers is Peyton and Kit. Peyton and Kit are the true enemies to lovers. I will say it right now, because you could tell at the very beginning like Peyton did not like Kit at all, because Kit reminded her so much of the king, and you could already tell like she did not like him. And so I feel like that is the true enemies to lovers. Sorry, it's getting dark outside, so the lighting's actually pretty bad, but we can ignore that. But yeah, they are the true enemies to lovers. But Kai is also great as well, so I won't complain. And the next thing that I did want to say was that if you guys have seen any of Lauren Roberts like TikToks and marketing about Powerless, she often says that Powerless is if the Hunger Games and Red Queen had a child that does not resemble its parents, except I think that it resembles its parents. Like, of course no book is ever unique, and I totally understand that, but I feel like there were some parts of this book that I felt were like very much taken from these two books. Like Adina is literally Primrose and Cinna, like just mixed into one. Peyton is literally Katniss. Like their characters and their personalities are very similar in my opinion. And then just like Red Queen, we have Cal Kalor and Maven Kalor, the two brothers, and we have Kit and Kai. And it's very much similar to like Maven and Kai, dark hair, pretty eyes. Kit and Cal, you know, the lighter hair, also pretty eyes, and future king. So I feel like I feel like there are a lot of very similar personalities. Also like Tila, like the announcer girl, just like Caesar Flickman, they both have blue hair too. Not that that really like matters too much, but I don't know, I was thinking about that. But overall, I think that this is a very easy read. This is a book that I would recommend to someone who wants to get into fantasy that usually isn't a fantasy reader. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I will definitely be picking up the second book when it comes out next year. Oh, I forgot to show the book. It's got the book. I also have the original one when she first like self-published it in January, so I feel like, I don't know, not trying to say I'm special, but I feel like I am a little special because I have the self-published version. And then I read my beloved Devil's Night series, the last book of the Devil's Night series, which is Nightfall. And I also read the novella after called Fire Night. Both are by Penelope Douglas. I don't really know how to give a good like summary or synopsis of this because this is the 4th book, but just know that this book is so good. I am making a video on the Devil's Night series, so you'll probably see that at some point. Definitely check the trigger warnings before you go and read this book, but I love this book. This book is also my Roman Empire. 5 out of 5 for this book, 4 out of 5 for the novella. Last but not least, I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, and let me tell you, this was a 5 out of 5 as well. It follows Araya, and she is a human in a world full of vampires, okay? And so already she is kind of at a disadvantage, and she gets adopted by the vampire king when she's like super young, and so she lives with him, she trains with him, and her one wish is to enter the Kajari, which is another tournament. Like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of tournaments, because the winner of the tournament gets one wish from the goddess herself, and so her wish is to become a powerful vampire as well. Like I mentioned, this is a 5 out of 5. I enjoyed this book so much. I love the author's writing. This is a new author for me. I've never read one of her books before, and I am so glad that I read it because I enjoyed this book so much. The writing is beautiful. It is so descriptive. Like I had such a clear visualization of everything that happened in this book. I love like the reluctant allies to lovers. The tournaments were very fun, very unique. I just love this book so much, so I cannot wait to read the next few books. That concludes my 2023 yearly wrap-up. It is clearly very dark outside right now, so I apologize if the lighting is kind of like in shambles, but thank you so much for watching. If you've read any of these books or have any recommendations for me, definitely feel free to comment them below, or even like message me on any of my socials, which are also linked down below. I love hearing people's opinions, and I love just like talking, so if anybody has any recommendations or has any comments about the books, definitely feel free to share. I know I ramble quite a bit, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys had a fun time, and I hope you guys had an amazing year. I'll see you in 2024. Bye!